Alright, we're back with more NBA coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering all the game action from February 22nd onwards that I ended up watching. Of course, that is post-All-Star break for me, and for the first couple days, with games being on Amazon Prime and places like that, I didn't really have access to it. But I had been keeping up with it, with everything ranging from the Pistons continuing to be dominant out of that stretch and beating the shit out of the Knicks that had all the New York fans just crying in their overall places of residence and everything like that, and a bunch of other developments overall to this point. But I would be able to get back into watching the live action on Sunday, starting out, in fact, with the game between the Cavs and Thunder. Now, for these two teams at this point, they are some of the better teams in the NBA at this point. Now, not to the extent that it was last season when these matchups took place, as I had referenced before, with them literally being 1A and 1B even for a point in time. That's how great both of those teams were last season. You weren't really getting that in the same kind of way. Obviously, the Thunder were still sitting atop the Western Conference at this point, and, as of this recording, they still are. But they've been very beatable in some stretches of the season. They weren't as inevitable as they seemingly started out towards the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, the Cavs to this point, especially with getting James Harden, they'd been on a hot streak. They'd won something like at least 12 of their last 13 heading into this game. And, obviously taking the break into account, they've been on a tear since getting that man to flank the, facilitating duties alongside the dynamic superstar caliber player in Donovan Mitchell. It's been working like a charm for them to this point. And it felt like coming into this, the Cavs kind of had an opportunity to just stamp this overall run. Because this Thunder team, even if the record suggested that they were still sitting atop the Western Conference, they were a little bit weaker. They'd be without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. In fact, they're going to miss him for a little bit more time. And for Jalen Williams as well, the Santa Clara Jalen Williams, he's also out as far as this game is concerned, missing an extensive period of time himself. So you're down two players that you recently signed to max and supermax deals in the offseason. Not to mention with them literally serving as the Batman and Robin in the championship run, where they ended up going for their first title against the Pacers in that series. That's the kind of talent that you're losing in this one. And so the question coming into it was, for one, obviously, could the Cavs take advantage of that? Could they exploit a weaker unit of guards? And for the Thunder, it was going to be centered around that as well. Now, you still had Chet Holmgren trying his best to hold it down on the defensive front. But who was going to be the guard for this team to step it up for them? And you pretty quickly found your answer as far as this game was concerned. As Gary Oldman would put it, everyone ate in this game for the Oklahoma City guards in this one. You can look at Isaiah Joe's shooting in this first quarter, going off for 11 points and just lining it up from deep. Pretty much encapsulating a flamethrower all night long. Cason Wallace being the de facto point guard in this situation and honestly running the offense pretty well. It's not like he's completely unaccustomed to experiencing that after playing behind and alongside Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham for a good portion of time. Even if that wasn't going to be a strong point for him entering the draft, it's not like he was going to be completely oblivious, and he put that on major display against the Cavs in this game. It was also Jared McCain as well, a new addition for them, who had previously come off a game where he went for like 30 plus. Settling right back into the flow of things and getting himself a hot start to the game as well with 5 points in the first quarter. And a lot of these shots, even with them doing exceptionally well from three, some of these were just genuinely the easiest buckets of their lives. Because very quickly, the turnovers on the Cavs side started to ramp up. The big men could not get a hold in the paint at all, even with Chet Holmgren being the main guy to hold it down. And they also had gotten Isaiah Hartenstein back to limit things as well. But clearly as well, from a shooting standpoint, they just came out absolutely cold and flustered. And with the pace that Oklahoma City likes to settle into, it just created an absolute mismatch time and time and time again. They could not get into their offensive sets, and they were just constantly disrupted by the on-ball pressure from this Thunder unit. Very quickly, you went from 1 turnover to 2 turnovers to them before we even get through the entire first quarter. They'd already reached 10 turnovers as a team. And for Oklahoma City, no Shea, no Jada, no problem. Because they were already up before the first quarter was even over by a score of 28-5. 28-5. And that I'm just watching the entire game unfold. And very early on, I'm saying, oh, okay, the Cavs they're in trouble. Just as a quick aside, like I'm watching different clips, okay, and with not being able to watch the full show at times, I get into this segment on YouTube from First Take, where Stephen A. Smith said that the Thunder without Shea and J-Dub wouldn't be a top 8 team in the Western Conference. And they are proceeding, in spite of all of that commentary, to lay the absolute smackdown on a Cavs roster at pretty much full fucking strength. It was very bad. And the run eventually ended up being 30-8 before the Cavs started to string together a few points with some contributions from Sam Merrill and also Donovan Mitchell in back-to-back quarters, getting some rapid buzzer beater style shots to try to mitigate the damage. As cool as that might have looked in time, like the first one, he's literally just spam dribbling, zigzagging his way into the paint for the quick floater to bring the score down within 15. They still had their work cut out for them. And what you can say about Cleveland in this game is that very quickly you started to feel a shift. It would take a while for it to fully come to form, but they got there. I would think that if this was like the earlier iteration of the Cavs this season, and they probably would have been as good as done in this game as far as I'm concerned. But this next stretch of the season for them has honestly been something that they've definitely taken seriously. You can tell. It is evident in that locker room. And, man, they would eventually get it going. But, my goodness, a cold start like that, is very difficult to overcome. Yet they would try. They trimmed it down as best as they could. And, to continue moving forward in the second quarter, they'd have a few quick spurts of runs. A 6-3 run with Keon Ellis just being the two-way force you'd expect him to be. And a fucking pest on the defensive end to try to trim things down. The Thunder themselves would have a few responses continuing to play exceptionally well on the perimeter. But the Cavs would get themselves in a crucial 9-3 tear here to end off the quarter. And again, Donovan Mitchell, as I said, will once more get himself a buzzer-beating shot to bring this game down to single digits. Just think about that for a second. The Thunder had come out forcing 10-plus turnovers in just the first quarter. They had been, by the minute and 48 mark in the second quarter, been shooting 65% from deep as a team, which is rare to even see the Thunder reach at this point, especially over the past couple of seasons in this thing. They'd been playing that well on both sides of the ball, and the Cavs could walk out of the first half down by just 9 points. Not half bad at all. But they had to be able, because when you're on that kind of hot shooting streak, it's almost like things have to level out at some point, sooner rather than later. There's just no way that you're expected to constantly maintain that elite, and I mean elite, shooting tear for an entire game. And if you can, well, you've got it. But naturally, that's law. Like, you can't have that happen. And they'd need that kind of fall from the Thunder, but the Cavs would also have to pick it up on both sides of the ball, generally speaking. Cleaner rotations and smoother offensive formation. When it comes to spacing, when it comes to pick and roll actions, it was just all clunky. One man would get them there, and it was none other than Sam Merrill. Just think about that. Even with all of James Harden, Chet Holmgren, and Cason Wallace on double-double watch by this point in the game, it was Sam Merrill who brought them right back into it. You're trying to come out firing, and they did exactly that. A hell of a response to start out this third quarter. A 15-4 run with Sam Merrill essentially accounting for the first 9 points by himself on just deep three after deep three after deep three to counter the attack that the Thunder had been implementing all night long. And before you knew it, Evan Mobley was starting to find his shot, and Jarrett Allen as well, as this run was still going forward, he would get himself a monster fucking dunk over Chet Holmgren to not only rub that shit in his face, but take the lead back. One of the larger in-game comebacks that you'd probably witness this season. Down by 25 at that point in the first period. And they worked themselves all the way back into it, slowly but surely, to take the lead. Even with this being in Oklahoma City, all the momentum was on the Cavs' side here. And from that point forward, it was just going to be nothing but hard-fought and just exceptional basketball on both sides. A true game of X's and O's encounters, because from this point forward, nothing was truly given in this one. The Thunder would try to chip themselves right back out in front, but with the contributions of other veteran players like Dennis Schroeder and also James Harden again continuing to get into a rhythm here, it wasn't like the Thunder could just completely put the Cavs away like that. They ended up bringing this down to a 3-point ball game by the end of the third quarter, which is still just a massive accomplishment to deal with. You had a lead. You were as competitive as one could be in this situation. You were in the fight. Truly. And then Kenny Atkinson got teed up. Now, to be honest with you, I looked away for a split second and I didn't even peep what the hell he got a technical foul for. But for a man who, interestingly enough, as the graphic would show, he had the second most technical fouls amongst coaches in the league this season to this point. And I'm like, damn, he must really not care. But at the same time, even with this game being so close, you had to understand at that point that every single score was going to matter. Even if it is just a technical free throw in a singular point. Every single possession is going to matter against this kind of team, even with them being weakened. Because again, we all rationally understand that when they are at full strength, and even with, missing some of the other guys, like AJ Mitchell, for example, was also out of this game. So your depth was definitely shot a little bit, but you still have the talent to have multiple starting fives on your roster. So there was very little room for error here. And both teams got a little sloppy, I will say. You have to respect, for one, Nikola Topic in one of the games that he would play in after his return from actually beating his cancer. So that's massive, first and foremost. You definitely saw some good potential from him in terms of being a playmaker. But there were also other passes where he might have just got a little greedy, or his eyes just traveled in a completely different direction. And the Cavs were able to pounce on that a few good times to create some sloppy sequences. But they themselves, when they needed some scores down the stretch, it was still Sam Merrill providing them. But the efforts from elsewhere started to diminish just a little bit, just as we were nearing clutch time. And as Cason Wallace would continue his hot shooting streak over the last few games, because that's his specialty, is a 3-and-D guy. They would bounce or put it up to an 8-point game. And as we got into clutch time, everybody on the Cavs just, they could not muster much of anything. Outside of one Jared Allen 2-pointer, they really struggled to generate anything offensively. And again, that Thunder squad, they started to put those clamps back on. It was just a slow burn. It was still a multi-possession game, but it very slowly reached the point where the Cavs just could not overcome it anymore. They tried, and you have to credit them for fighting like hell to get back into this game. Like, that early-ass kill shot attempt could have completely taken them out. But no, they took a lead. They kept this thing as competitive for as long as they possibly could and endured for as long as they possibly could. But the Thunder would get themselves the 121 to 113 win late. For the game overall, the shooting for the Thunder tempered a little bit. They still shot 51.2% from deep with 21 threes. You can't guarantee that that's always going to happen with Oklahoma City, but when you have everything else in rhythm, when they're continuing to turn teams over and get out in transition and run the offense that way, literally 31 points off of those 17 turnovers forced. And again, the game got even in that regard as the Thunder themselves had 16. But that ability right there to generate quick, hot percentage looks and that scorching hot start ended up being the main and the key reason why the Cavs ended up losing this game, despite them having their own advantage in paint points and, being relatively even on the glass. It's not like their shooting was particularly bad, but again, you can't compete with a team shooting that well, that consistently from that range. It's all about the increased value of it all at the end of the day. For the numbers, Chet Holmgren would have a 17-point, 15 rebound, 4 assists, and 3 block double-double on 5 of 14 shooting, while Isaiah Joe, starting this time, would have 22 points and 5 steals, all 5 of them coming in just the first quarter alone, by the way, on 6 of 13 shooting with 6 threes. Cason Wallace had 20 points and a career-high 10 assists for a double-double on 7 of 17 shooting with 4 threes. And Isaiah Hardenstein also accounted for 13 points and 7 rebounds on 6 of 6 shooting from the field. Jalen Williams of Arkansas and Jared McCain would also each add 10 points off the bench. As for the Cavs in this game, Donovan Mitchell and James Harden both had 20 points, with Harden also adding 9 assists on 8 of 14 shooting with 3 threes. Sam Merrill would have 20 points as well off the bench with 3 rebounds and 6 three-pointers. Evan Mobley had 15 points on 6 of 11 shooting and just 2 rebounds, which is kind of fucking crazy when you think about it. But at the same time, if Hardenstein's the true center there, he's going to be able to hold that down with having a bit more bulk in his frame. And Keon Ellis off the bench also had 9 points and 3 assists on 4 of 7 shooting. They couldn't even play Dean Wade. And that was something that got them in a rut as well. He started and didn't contribute a single bucket. They substituted him out for Sam Merrill, and they instantly started finding offensive success to move a little bit quicker around the court as well and just space out the fucking floor. Something that Dean Wade just could not provide for them in this game. No matter how you slice it, it was definitely a tough loss to endure, again, especially in a situation where this was a grand opportunity for you to just take over everything. But it wasn't meant to be in this case. Okay. Moving on to the next game on Sunday between the Warriors and the Nuggets. And you are getting not necessarily a similar thing here, but obviously there are some key players on both sides missing time. Of course, Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler III, Draymond Green. You can go up and down the list. A lot of key Warriors contributors were out of this particular matchup. And it looked very appetizing for the Nuggets on paper. I mean, hell, they had Cameron Johnson back too. Aaron Gordon, of course, is still dealing with injury, but you're getting Cam Johnson back. You have Christian Braun now returning from injury. Jamal Murray is healthy. Nikola Jokic is healthy. It's just damn near a fucking bomb squad at that point. And it was going to be exponentially difficult for the Warriors to come in this one and attempt to pull off anything. And it started that way. You kept on hearing from Doris Burke about how the Nuggets were just consistently backdoor cutting to death. And that's because they were. Like, you just got Jokic getting his feet, 2 fucking feet, inside the paint in close range where you know his floater is lethally accurate. And honestly, In terms of player signature shots, that's probably the most accurate shot in the league outside of anything like maybe a Wembanyama dunk. It is the Jokic floater. So, of course, you're going to have to watch that. But at the same time, you have multiple eyes watching him because, of course, that is the offensive engine. Undisputed. You have to pay attention to him, get multiple bodies on him. And it left everybody out of position to the point where all Jokic had to do was just pocket pass, pop pass, and you have an open cutter in that area to get a free shot up uncontested. It's as simple as that, time and time again. And it got so easy that he had a couple sequences there where he just no-looked the shit to Christian Braun, getting up for some athletic finishes, and even drew himself an and one in this, with him finishing with 12 points in the first quarter by himself, just doing that, playing within his role. And Jokic himself, it's not like he was shooting exponentially well to start off this game. Accuracy was fairly low, but he had 8 assists in the first quarter, tied for the most in a single quarter in his career. And the Warriors seemingly had no answer for it. Now, even with that being said, the Warriors, with the likes of Moses Moody continuing to be an accurate shooter out in space, with Will Richard putting together 7 first quarter points, and with Al Horford doing exactly what the Warriors brought him in for, putting together some okay defense. But being that kind of small ball guy who can space the floor, he did that well in this first quarter. And whatever he was rolling with, it was working, because he himself had 11 first quarter points. The Warriors walked out of this with a lead. They were up 39-27 by the end of this first quarter. So even with all those complaints, everything was seemingly working out. Even with Nikola Jokic already being on triple-double watch and having 2 career halves with a triple-double to this point, that didn't end up mattering. It just, things got sloppy from there. Now, the Warriors were able to get away with it occasionally. Like, for example, everything on this particular play was just so bunched up on the right wing of the court, and yet they got the slip from Santos to get in the restricted area and get up an uncontested layup. That ended up being okay, but that's not something that they could afford for the long run. And defensively, it was now Jamal Murray's turn to just pull off all the and one street ball moves. Even with Brandon Podziemski trying his hardest to defend him, there were cases where he was just being put up in a post situation by Jamal Murray, and Jamal Murray won the bout with tough shot after tough shot, as he would have 10 points in the second quarter. Not to mention as well, they offensively were able to take it over because, man, they just allowed them to start tearing it up from deep themselves. Even if you want Jokic to play from anywhere else, honestly, outside of the center of the court, you still can't leave him open for 3, and they were able to capitalize on that multiple times. They had the offense to match themselves, but they started getting into some bad old habits. Now, obviously, not really being able to match up on a skill level, and also just getting themselves in danger of fouling while trying to play defense. And that has been an Achilles heel for them, honestly, over the last few seasons. And even though they would still have a 9-point lead at the end of the second quarter, you would see that flare up mightily in the third quarter, where Jokic just did Jokic things. I mean, the Nuggets were already in the bonus by a little near halfway through the third quarter. And Jokic was just going to fucking work, man. He was hogging up the glass because, again, you don't have a player nearly as big outside of maybe Al Horford to contest on rebounds. And who's going to guard him offensively? Who's going to stop him? You be the judge of that. But with him putting up 14 points in the third quarter by himself, it opened up opportunities for everyone else on this team. And it felt that way. I mean, they just completely got out and ran everything. They had themselves runs of 9-3 and 12-5 in this quarter. Just completely dominating the game. And while it was still somewhat competitive, it got very out of hand late, despite the Warriors tying up the ball game in spite of this cold stretch. At the 4:18 mark, they decided to give up a run that put the Nuggets up by 6 at the end of the quarter, just like that. And that only happened with DeAnthony Melton finding his way to the basket off of a Pat Spencer dime. So now you're in danger. If you're the Warriors, the key was going to be non-Jokic minutes, but already came into this fourth quarter with a lead. If things weren't getting too out of hand, they wouldn't even need to worry about putting him back out on the floor. And the threat of always making that happen is going to force teams to have to do even more than they would naturally and normally be expected to contribute to a game. Well, on this fateful day, on February 22nd, you would get that. I mean, the Warriors, led by the Warriors version of Josh Hart in Brandon motherfucking Podziemski, would get it done in the fourth quarter without it really being expected. They went on a 24-8 run, and after being cold for most of the game, he had not scored a point since the first quarter. Brandon Podziemski did virtually everything. You needed two-way play from him, he had it. You needed playmaking from him, he got it. One of the best defensive rebounding guards in the league, continued to stuff the stat sheet in that regard, and he could not be guarded from deep. An all-around quarter from him, resulting in 15 points in that one alone, just a few days before his 23rd birthday, naturally feeling himself and being on cloud 9 in this case. And, you know, at that point, the Warriors are down, they're trailing, they're trying to fight back, and then, feeling the heat, the Nuggets just get hit with this surge of elite offensive play all across the board, with GP2 getting some quality shots in, with Al Horford continuing to be on his own tear, and again, Podziemski just taking it over completely. The Nuggets tried to have their own responses, but they were few and far between. A testament to how the Warriors were able to step it up defensively in this moment of time. And despite the Nuggets, again, being one of the better teams in the Western Conference at that point, the Warriors would get themselves, after a 24-8 run, RIP to Kobe Bryant, they would get it done against the Nuggets with a score of 128 to 117 in this game. The scoring and shooting outside of the Nuggets, shooting just 25.8% from deep, was somewhat even. And again, that ability for the Warriors to space the floor at a much cleaner rate, they had an advantage of 39 points essentially from that range of the floor. The Nuggets, again, over the past few seasons, they've not had as much volume from deep, but they've shot rather well. So you could chalk this performance up to a number of different things, but that would be the turning point. Full stop. For the numbers, man, Moses Moody had 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in a start on 9 of 16 shooting 4 threes. Al Horford had 22 points and 7 assists on 8 of 11 shooting with 6 threes. DeAnthony Melton also had 20 points and 2 assists with 4 steals in this game, impressively, on 7 of 18 shooting. And Brandon Podziemski off the bench. Spoiler alert, he'd do this in back-to-back games by posting a double-double and a damn near triple-double with 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists on 7 of 16 shooting with 3 threes. And while some people would still try to hate on it, you had people running to these comment sections trying to post their apology forms, trying to express some regret for previous sentiments expressed about one Brandon Podziemski. You have got to put respect on that man's name consistently. And again, with him, that is really what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to with a lot of the young players on this roster is consistency. Fair enough. But boy, a hell of a time for him to have a game like that and essentially go head-to-head with a player considered to be the best in the league. Gary Payton II would also have 15 points in this game on 6 of 11 shooting. The Nuggets would not go down without a fight, even if that run would suggest that they got completely smoked in that last period. Because Nikola Jokic, as he continues to chase down the eventual, seemingly inevitable record for triple-doubles in a career, in fact, his pace in terms of triple-doubles across his entire career game log, it is one of the higher rates, if not the highest rate for triple-doubles per season. And across that specific amount of games in NBA history. And he would get another one with 35 points, 20 rebounds, and 12 assists on 11-21 shooting with 3 threes. It's like there is just nothing you can do about that, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you game plan for it. There's nothing you can do about that. He's just inevitable. And so at that point, it's like, it's going to be what it is. It made for a great basketball game. It did. Jeez, man. Wow. Jamal Murray would have 21 points and 2 assists on 9 of 17 shooting. Christian Braun had 18 points and 5 rebounds on 7 of 11 shooting. And Bruce Brown Jr. had 12 points off the bench along with 5 rebounds and 3 steals on 5 of 10 shooting with 2 threes. Again, like I said, they shot fine, but that atrocious 3-point percentage, even, again, if that's not all that matters, that is the most glaring discrepancy in the action here. The most glaring. It's not even close. Everything else, I'm like dead serious, was pretty much even. And context matters too, but again, they could have used that counter of semi-accurate shooting during that late run and spurt from the Warriors. Hell of a win to get here. And then to move into the Celtics and Lakers for Sunday night basketball on NBC. They got their asses whipped on national television. I'll just get into this aside really quickly. Who the fuck does DeAndre Ayton think he is? Because I saw the comments that he said, and it's like, dude, they are simply asking you to be a complimentary center to two of the greatest basketball minds and two of the most dynamic facilitators at their positions in NBA history. To be the athletic lob threat that you were expected to be coming out of college and actually provide some effort and dexterity on the court on both sides of the ball. And I don't know how he's taking that as an insult. Where do you get off on trying to make it seem like they are trying to get you to play like Clint Capella? They're not even asking you to be a lockdown defender. But you are a part of the fucking problem when it comes to them not being able to guard shit. That is the flaw. That is the fault with this overall team. And as the big man on the squad, by frame, by position, you should be expected to be the anchor, the glue that holds everything together, or at least has the capability to do so. They're not asking you to be a lockdown man. And quite frankly, with his track record, with everything he's come out and said, if you weren't so focused on chasing the fucking bag, you'd be a lockdown defender by locking in and working on that part of your game. But again, at this point, at this age, you are going to be exactly what you always have been. They're not asking you to be Clint Capella. They are asking you to show some kind of defensive capability out there, and you can't even do that. At all. And it's continued past this game. Then you have the nerve to come out and say that a few days ago. Clint Capella's not going to be the same man athletically, but he's going to at least provide some form of quality rim protection, or at least make an effort to deter these shots and not get bullied around in the paint by smaller guards, by smaller wings, and with every center-to-center matchup. There's no way that Kata and Vukcevic should be able to consistently get their way in the paint and on the glass against this man. There is no way that wings like Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez should be able to get 2 feet in the paint and consistently get rebound after rebound after rebound over this man. They're not asking you to mask and play as if you are a lockdown defender, because we all understand you are a cone. But can you at least show me that you are willing to give it a fucking try instead of complaining about it? Why are you crying and running to the media about those expectations? So he hasn't learned a thing. And this is exactly what I said when they signed him. All you are worried about is the money, but they come out here in free agency and they give your ass a 2-year, $16 million deal. This is probably the last opportunity, major one at that, you are going to get to prove that worth as a former number 1 overall pick. And here we are again as the cycle continues, because this man, rather than actually trying to play basketball and play physical basketball, you just run around and lack the drive and the true passion that they would need to take them over the hump. You don't have it. So stop running to the media trying to seek it out and complaining that you don't have it. If you're going to do all that, you'd be much better off actually spending time working on your game than wasting everybody else's. Simply put. Now, I say all that to say the Celtics, they more than deserve the win. Especially with the way, with the hustle that I expressed from them. And they are a team who is also facing their own struggles with injury right now. They're missing some core guys all over the place. And they've been trying to navigate this situation as they do believe that Jason Tatum is trying to accelerate a potential comeback this season. They're dealing with all that noise, and you don't see them complaining about it for a second. Maybe they're even embracing it. But on the court, they're more than handling their business. Jaylen Brown is out here continuing what has been an MVP caliber season for him, and deservedly so, as he would have 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists with 3 steals in this game on 10 of 28 shooting. That's a lot of shots with 3 threes. It seems like Derek White has still taken some time to try to get his accuracy back to form, which is something that could be questioned. But he would have 12 points in this game with 2 threes as well. And I think where this game was truly made up, and where it may not, get a ton of credit from main media guys out there, because, they'll still question the ability of the Celtics to really get consistent scoring from elsewhere. But I'm not going to lie, when it came to their interior presence, yes, you can have them out-rebounding the Lakers. But I think what Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown put on display, especially for a player like Peyton Pritchard, what they were able to do to consistently, without fear, without hesitation, no matter who was guarding them, they consistently went to work. It was those two handling the brunt of the offensive load. And Pritchard, again, for a player that small, yes, he's getting up 6 3-point shots and he made 9 of them. But he was also that damn accurate from inside the 3-point line. And he was getting some pretty tough looks in too. So it wasn't like all of these were just complete flukes. Like, no, he was generally unfazed. And I think that would say a lot more about the culture that the Celtics are trying to build under Mazzulla, as they would mention in one of the later games that I watched. Essentially, Mazzulla, with a minimum of, 300 games is the winningest head coach in NBA history by percentage. So no matter who's out there, whether Jason Tatum comes back or not, you know you're going to get some fight out of this team. And Pritchard put it to him. Now, he and Brown had a couple of push-offs that looked like crossovers in this game. We don't talk about that much. But Pritchard had a 30-point, 8-assist night on 10 of 14 shooting overall. Definitely impressive on his end. Now, as for the overall numbers from the Lakers, with that uninspiring, and at this point, like, there's just so much to be said about this. It is ridiculous at this point. And again, you have him showing you who he is as a player with no intent to change. So, what is the point? That nigga aside, in this game, LeBron had 20 points and 5 assists with 4 rebounds on 9 of 21 shooting. And Luka Doncic had 25 points with 5 rebounds on 9 of 22 shooting with 4 threes. So generally just a rough shooting night for them all around. 30% from deep also, with them again still being a team that can't capitalize on the most wide open shots. Especially from Marcus Smart's perspective. 0 of 5 from 3, and he didn't score 0 of 7 from the field. Like, these are good looks, but it's almost like these teams are just looking at that metric and they're leaving you open. Even if it is an accident, they have it in their unconscious that it's like, okay, we can afford to do it because they're not going to make it. There's a pretty good chance that they won't, and you're proving them right repeatedly. Like, okay. There's just a lot, and I mean a lot, that they need to get figured out there, genuinely speaking. But moving on to the action that I watched on Tuesday, quite frankly, it was only the one game, unfortunately. The Knicks Cavs would have been talked about, but I didn't end up watching the entire thing. I got back in there late, and then by the time I got back in there, well, the Cavs had already been dominating the shit out of the Knicks in a 109-94 win for them. So I did my best to prepare to watch the second game between the Timberwolves and the Trailblazers, and for this one, to my surprise, Scoot Henderson was back. Now, they had him on a minutes restriction, but for him to actually be back and playing was definitely a pretty good surprise. And to be honest, with the way that he did play in this game, because I came in as it was like an 11-12 ball game. I was still on the other stream just watching the end of that one. It honestly looks as though athletically, he's just fine. You know, there was definitely, with him dealing with that hamstring injury for an extensive period of time, there's definitely going to be a worry that settles in about how he'll be able to really hone into that aspect of its game. It's a strength of his. It was a highlight of his coming out of the draft. And genuinely, he just looks as fresh as he ever really did. getting off the floor and in the fucking air. Over people. Over niggas. So that was definitely an interesting thing to see. But of course, in a minutes restriction, even with you being able to do that, and it definitely gave him some juice, it still could not mask some of the other issues that were going on with the Trailblazers in this game. Matisse Thybulle was also back. A man who had not appeared in action with the Trailblazers in quite some fucking time himself. But that was still not enough for them to guard either of Julius Randle on his bully ball timing and also Jaden McDaniels. Because they do have him. If Anthony Edwards didn't already make that clear to you in the Suns series. They have him, and as a two-way presence, there was no answer for him in this game overall, especially to start out. Came out with 11 points in the first quarter, and he was also just swatting every fucking thing on the other side of the ball. As if things just couldn't even get worse for the Trailblazers in that regard. It was still close. But again, with every blocked shot from him and others, by the time we get down further into this, that's going to matter a whole hell of a lot. So those would pretty valuable to have. And it's just like, no, not on Jaden McDaniels' watch. But still, they were only down by 6 points entering the second quarter. And it is at that point, well, Anthony Edwards decided, oh, okay, I'm just going to be the superstar that I am. And I'm going to take this game over. And there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Now, they tried. And they, this was despite them falling into a hole early. As some of their shooting slumped a little bit. They did eventually pick it up, but not before Anthony Edwards was able to make his mark on this game. Had 17 points in the second quarter by himself, as Jaden McDaniels would also reach a tied for career high log in blocks by this point in the game. Still, they were able to find that rhythm. And with Drew Holiday being able to steady the course and consistently take it against Rudy Gobert to the rim for uncontested layups, with him trailing by a country mile, the Trailblazers were still in the fight. Scoot Henderson will also continue to give them the scoring punch that they needed, with them bringing this to a 3-point ball game, despite everything that I just mentioned the Timberwolves were doing. They were there. And it does truly say a lot about what this team has done this season. As I said, as this game was going forward, it's like, if you are the Trailblazers here, you don't know what is going to happen, and that's still going to need more follow-ups if there's more information coming out in regards to this entire thing, dealing with the likes of Rozier III, with the likes of Damon Jones, with the likes of Chauncey Billups. You don't know what's going to happen there, but if things go a certain way, and you have an opportunity to make a clear-cut decision at the end of the year, it's feeling like they should remove the interim tag from Tiago Splitter. It is feeling that way. Because nobody, not a soul, came into this season expecting the Trailblazers to do much of anything. And that got even worse with Chauncey Billups being caught up in that situation and taken away from his post indefinitely. they were deemed to be mega fucked. Instead, they have turned all that turmoil into a season of potential play-in contention and a damn near 500 record. They're right at the edge of it. And honestly, that's impressive to me. You just continue to get an essence of a capable team on the rise. Because Donovan Clingan, to his credit, would come out just sparking up a three-point shot immediately. And with him also getting 8 points in this third quarter, the Trailblazers would be able to make some waves here. Truly. They were able to match well with the kind of intensity that the Timberwolves were approaching this game from. Because it wasn't just the likes of Jaden McDaniels making things happen. Tamani Kamara was struggling from the floor, but he himself was giving maximum effort on both sides of the basketball. Sidy Cissoko became a very underrated player in this game for them on both sides as well. You know, as much as I question his shooting, he was able to get some quality stops on ball in this quarter as well. And that, again, meant quite a lot. Now, again, it wasn't always effective. You have Rudy Gobert actually start to get on the board after being scoreless for like the first stretch of this game. With just some routine floater shots for him. And Julius Randle also just continued to bully these guys down low. All of that would culminate in Scoot Henderson, again, just, having some pretty damn good plays. Like, again, athletically, he's good. He is good, man. The shooting is more of a struggle for him, and again, there were traces of that, and he wasn't that bad. I'll tell you what, as he was getting up for them dunks, though, hey, them fans were getting hyped. But they needed more to overcome a 15-4 run eventually, and also trying to win this game the right way in the fourth quarter. I will say that, for a while, Jeremy Grant's free throws were keeping them alive. Majority of his scoring came from the free throw line. And at that point, easy buckets are always going to help. But this game was just back and forth all around. You got an interesting wrinkle in this game here as repeatedly across a few possessions, man, they were trying to fucking wreck Cissoko. That's how much of a presence he must have been gaining in this game, because before you know it, he gets out in transition on a pretty good steal. He gets out and seemingly has the leverage, the space to put up a shot. But Dosunmu comes trailing from behind with his own hustle and commits a hard foul on him that he did not take a liking to. Now, upon, the first few seconds of it, you see Cissoko fall face first. And I'm thinking, is he good? Is he okay in that regard? Because it damn near dribbled for a second. So that could be primed for a concussion at that point. And you have to be careful. But, bruh, they talk about this shit in meme form all the time, and you just can't make this shit up. The second they blew the fucking whistle on the play and signaled for the foul, this man Cissoko leaps back up out of that position when he's seemingly concussed and injured. He leaps back up off the floor and tries to charge at Ayo Dosunmu. Tries to punch the shit out of him. What? There's just no way that drives you to fucking do that in that situation. You're hurt. You're down. We all saw what we just saw. But the energy, the riled up anger within you in that moment cannot do enough to hold you down forever. The shit is unhinged. They would tee up Ayo Dosunmu, and they'd also tee up Sidy Cissoko. Or, well, rather, Cissoko and McDaniels got technical fouls on the double tech. And Dosunmu would be called for a flagrant one that would eventually turn into a twofer with Chris Murray, of all people, giving them a brief lead. Now, did that last for much time despite that kind of environment? No. This was the moment where outside shooting just completely turned against the Blazers. Even as we near clutch time, even as Jeremy Grant trying to keep them in it with free throws, it wasn't enough. You pair that up with just some sloppy basketball and an opportunistic defense waiting to pounce and capitalize on those opportunities, and you got a pretty bad mix here. It was close for a little bit, but the Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels getting it done in the clutch. Hell, Jaden McDaniels throwing down a circus-style dunk in transition to bring the lead up to 9. At that point, it was essentially over. They tried to get Vukcevic and others to get outside shots. It wasn't working. The game would end with the Timberwolves winning 124-121. And you're thinking, oh, this was a pretty close game. Jeremy Grant made a buzzer beater just for the fuck of it to make the score what it was. It's pretty inconsequential, okay? But the Trailblazers, again, you do give them credit. They were honestly right in it. Just, that is the other side of things. They have the potential, they have the promise to become a really good team someday. But sometimes that lack of, situational awareness, especially amongst their young players, gets in the way of them truly being able to seize these moments more often than not. It's just so marginal to, the surface level, but that is how they have kind of leveled out as an about 500 team. They've just got to be a little more consistent in that regard. But again, it's a pretty tough task to face off against one of the better teams in the NBA. The Timberwolves are the 5 seed in the West, so it's tough to just win outright. But they definitely took it to them. For the numbers in this game, shooting for a while was about relatively even until that last stretch, especially from the outside for the Trailblazers. And for the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards had 34 points and 4 assists with 2 steals on 11 of 21 shooting with 27 shooting. With 5 threes, Jaden McDaniels would have 29 points and 6 rebounds with those aforementioned 5 blocks on 12 of 16 shooting with 5 threes from deep. Dante DiVincenzo also had 19 points and 5 threes. Julius Randle had 13. And Rudy Gobert had 10 points and 19 rebounds. Okay. Interesting. Now, if only we could see something like that more consistently, alright? Alright. For the Trailblazers, Drew Holiday steadied the course for them. Surprisingly. Again, literally just taking it right to Rudy Gobert or getting some quality shots in the mid-range and being a somewhat lethal scorer for them with 22 points and 4 assists. 1 out of 16 shooting with 2 threes. As I said, Jeremy Grant might have been a free throw merchant in this game. 21 points and 5 rebounds on 3 of 12 shooting. but with 13 of 15 shooting from the line. Scoot Henderson, in, again, one of his first games back, if not his very first game back, had 19 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds on 7 of 18 shooting. And Chris Murray, of all fucking people, okay, had 16 points and 5 rebounds on 7 of 10 shooting with 2 threes. Donovan Quenton also added 11 points and 16 rebounds, along with 5 assists and 3 steals in this game. Honestly, it's interesting to see what the Trailblazers have been doing with their big men. Between getting Young Hansen and also having Donovan Quenton evolve as a pretty solid playmaker at his position, that just makes things so intriguing for the Blazers, especially when they can get Scoot Henderson back up to full speed. It's like, oh my goodness, like that's something to think about there for just a little bit of time. I ain't gonna lie, like that is crazy. Okay, so let me see. All right, so moving on to the Wednesday action, I should say. And starting out with the Pistons and the Thunder. And honestly, this damn night, regardless of how much some people might just hate these teams, man, for the ESPN doubleheader, grit and grind basketball to a fucking T. And you have to respect that. The Pistons, again, were rolling to this point. They are still sitting as the unquestioned 1 seed in the Eastern Conference at this point of time. And the Thunder, to this point, hadn't even faced off against them yet. Now, again, still to this point, it applies that you are somewhat weakened without having 2 of your core players here. They would also lose Chet Holmgren. They would also not have Isaiah Hartenstein in this game. Their backup center in Carlson would also be out after just 4 minutes in this game. So they were definitely hampered. It wasn't proven easy for them to try to go up against this Pistons squad, especially with them playing the way that they were. But no one could deny that this was a collision course. And what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Well, that is what you were going to find out within the context of this game. This was the very first matchup between these two all season long. Calendars were marked. Tickets were bought in advance for this. Everybody was waiting to see how this game would be played. And it was still competitive. Now, I wasn't in this for the first quarter. I did not watch the first quarter of this game, but the Thunder were winning. They were up 34-22 after the end of the first quarter. So again, we're sending the message yet again that even at our weakest, we can hang our hats on competing well with the best teams in the league. And we're not going to magically slide down to a below top 8 finish in the Western Conference without our guys for some time. We can hold it down. We can do that. However, things would definitely reach a head in the second quarter, especially when it came to an interior presence and lack thereof. It goes without saying, Jalen Duren is a man amongst boys. Because at the point that I get into this game. The Pistons are undergoing a 13-3 run. They have an advantage of 28-14 in paint points by this mark in the second quarter. And Duren is on the path to 10 points in the second quarter by himself. Going up for routine dunks. Having a few close misses at the rim akin to an Andre Drummond, right? He's getting his own rebound. And he's going back up with it strong for a few and one opportunities against players who legitimately cannot compete with him in the physical sense. Now, yes, the Arkansas Jalen Williams tried. He tried. And honestly, in a weird way, he'd finish with a pretty solid game. But you think he's going to stop Jalen Duren? No. Hell no. A complete 180 would take place. The Thunder, they went cold. They could not find that consistent production, even remotely. And the Pistons, again, that's the nature of their team. They got sped up a little bit, and it forced some turnovers early that you know the Pistons are more than going to capitalize off of. You know this. This is what they do. And by that point, the Thunder had been held to 18 points in the second quarter by the time it was over, with them just overall continuing to impose their will. It was Jalen Duren on path for a double-double. Cade Cunningham got off to a slow scoring start, but of course is the main floor general and maybe the only one. Some people would argue on the team, he's going to hold down that responsibility better than most players, and he was on pace for a double-double himself. Duncan Robinson would also get some open shots from three to cap off the quarter, and before you knew it, the Pistons had themselves a lead, with them ensuring that they could win outright. In fact, they showed a graphic stating that the Pistons were 37-4 when leading at halftime. So now the Thunder, even with this being a close game, were the team who had to go to work themselves just to get back in this fight. Then Cade Cunningham started to show you just how well-versed of a player he can truly be. Because there have been a lot of conversations around offensive-minded players not really being able to provide the same intensity on defense due to exertion, conditioning, you name it. After seeing what I saw from Cade Cunningham during this 18-5 run from the Pistons, getting his own easy looks on the offensive side, and then getting out in transition, chasing niggas down, hawking niggas down, and blocking him from behind. The man stared him down. He stared down Nikola Topic after hawking him down for a blocking transition that instantly led to a two-pointer for Duncan Robinson in transition and a timeout from the Thunder. You're seeing that kind of effort from a man recognized as the franchise guy for the Pistons right now, alongside Jalen Duren, on both sides of the ball. Can you really have any excuse? Can you really give anybody that excuse of not trying hard enough on both sides of the ball? After watching that sequence alone, and it was consistent with him in this game, when you have your franchise player bought in to contributing that way on both sides of the ball, it is a scary sight, always. And the Pistons, They just continued to have their way. It was Jalen Duren continuing to bury them alive down low. And ultimately, this was getting a little bad. And they stretched out the lead to as large as 15. And you even had Paul Reed getting himself some buckets in this situation. But as they would continue to grind out the quarter here, Caris LeVert would keep things at bay for them, weirdly enough. Despite the best efforts of, honestly, Jared McCain and Cason Wallace trying to, spark up some three-pointers for them, they were the most consistent ones. They needed somebody else, and they just did not have it at that point. They were still down by 14. So again, now in clutch time, you were going to be put to the test. And they seemingly answered the call. They got themselves on a 9-4 run, and you even had, as this quarter waned on, with them nearing clutch time, Aaron Wiggins capitalizing on and one opportunities and being a great player in terms of the aspect of hustle for them to bring this game back within 5. That just allowed them to keep things as close as possible as this became a clutch time game. Back and forth. Hard-nosed defense on both sides of the ball, but ultimately, as much as it might pain some people to say, there are going to be some cases where the talent and the skill just wins out, and despite the Thunder's best efforts, like this game was within for at multiple points, with Jalen Williams putting together again the game of his life, and Jared McCain continuing a hot shooting stretch. Cade Cunningham would settle into it as well after, again, a slow start in scoring. He made it a point to play at his style and his pace, and he got anything he wanted. Pulled up for 3 right over Jalen Williams. He got it. Getting into the mid-range game and being able to drive into the paint at will. A bit slow-footed, but again, just lulling the defense to sleep enough to get open looks. Got that too. It was easy. Easy money. And at a point, despite a few turnovers and Cade Cunningham even being in foul trouble, they were so keyed in on it, on a double team thrown at him off of an inbounds play, that Jalen Duren was just left wide open to coast in the paint and get up essentially what would be the dagger dunk in this game. The Pistons would win 124 to 116. The key difference here was, again, their high percentage looks. This is not something that has surprised anybody watching this team. They are simply not that good from the three-point line. They've tried to mitigate that. Clearly, Kevin Huerter's acquisition hasn't done enough to do that. He's not going to play all that much, but when you can impose your role in the paint like that, they had 70 points in the paint and shot 53.9% from the field overall while grabbing 15 more rebounds and forcing yeah, like what are you going to do at that point? And again, you can give credit to Jalen Williams, but he's not going to compete with those big bodies down low. Not to mention how Asar Thompson is consistently moving on the court. Like they just did not have an answer for it. It's as simple as that. Into the numbers, this would be a fairly historical night for Cade Cunningham. He would put together 29 points and 13 assists with 3 steals and 3 blocks on 11-16, shooting with 3 threes. Now, 8 turnovers is definitely a lot, but nonetheless, he was able to overcome that. With him, he did multiple things. This would be his 4th straight game with at least 10 assists and 2 blocks, making that the second longest streak since the 1973 season. And the last player to reach a similar streak was Mookie Blaylock with 5 in 1991. We all understand how great Blaylock was as a steals man. So to be in that conversation is definitely a good thing. And for Cade Cunningham to just check in and see, he would not get it again. So the streak would end there. But still, that's definitely impressive. And he, in the game, would put together his 18th with at least 25 points and 10 assists in this season, making it the second most in franchise history. He would get to 19 with a game just tonight against the Cavs with 25 and 10 that they are actively playing right now as of the recording of this video. They are in a death match. Oh my gosh! Jalen Duren! Oh my gosh! Cunningham and Duren are great players. Just gotta, okay. So, Jalen Duren in the game against the Thunder would also have himself a 29.15 rebound game on 12 of 17 shooting. My outburst there doesn't come from nowhere because as I'm trying to see what's going on with Cade Cunningham, again, they're actively in this game. This game is in overtime. They're up by 1 against the Cavs. And Jalen Duren, in 40 minutes of play, has 33 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks in 40 minutes of play with no turnovers on 11 of 19 shooting and 11 free throws from the stripe. Again, all season long, Jalen Duren has been on an absolute tear. It's why he got an all-star nod, and it's why he's in conversations to be the most improved player in the league. This is like they're not playing. They're here now. Again, they got to win that game though. The Cavs they are right there with them. They got to win, but oh my gosh, like damn. Still though, their play against the Thunder was generally impressive. So impressive that in fact it would make it to where their 19-7 record that they would finish with in this game against above 500 teams is currently the best mark in the NBA. And they are also, again, recently they lost to the Spurs, right? And talking about history, Cade Cunningham had potentially the worst game he could have had. The same man who managed to have a 40-plus point triple-double against the Wizards in double overtime despite missing 31 shots came off of that game shooting 5 of 26 from the field. But I digress. It's a good way to bounce back from that overall and get a tough win against a really good ball club. I'm pretty sure their record against top 5 teams is even more lethal. So, again, it's legit. It's not like they're just consistently beating down on bad competition and coasting their way to a top record in the league. Like, no, they're earning that shit. And this is what Detroit fans have honestly been waiting to see for such a long time. Literally, just 2 years ago, they were one of the worst teams through that identity shift, they have seriously reasserted themselves. Now, again, it's got to be proven, right? This is all in the moment, but my goodness, man, they are definitely putting something together to lay a great foundation, and you have to respect that. For the Thunder in this game, Jalen Williams would have 30 points and 11 rebounds, a career high in points for him, on 9 of 14 shooting with 5 threes. Like, he tried to keep pace with them, and it didn't even feel like he was taking over the game like that. They came in bunches, but fuck it, he got there, so you gotta give him credit. Cason Wallace would have 23 points and 5 assists on 9 of 17 shooting with 3 threes, and Jared McCain off the bench had 20 points and 2 assists on 6 of 16 shooting with 4 threes as well. Aaron Wiggins also added 20 points as a starter with 6 assists as well. All right, and then for the second game here, we have the Celtics facing off against the Nuggets here. And same thing, man. This game reminded me so much of everything that you hear about the dead ball era of basketball. Everything. Low scoring quarters, quality defensive play. That's the kind of shit you gotta respect. And it's in those moments, right then and right there, where you really get to the crux of who a team is. Now again, both of these teams are really fucking good. But man, everything about this game was very slow paced. And again, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. It's just that when it comes to scoring, if you were expecting it, you weren't getting a whole hell of a lot of it in this first half, point blank period. Now I will say that Jaylen Brown was taking great advantage of some potential mismatches and catching Christian Braun off guard on a few occasions to get himself to 12 first quarter points. But outside of that, man, there wasn't a lot to really work with in that regard. Literally, the Nuggets were keeping this close throughout the entire time. Neither team was really pulling away from one or the other. I will say, Derek White was trying his hardest in what would be homecoming for him, of course. Hometown kid from Colorado would put together a tied for career high in any quarter period with 18 points on just straight up shot after shot after three. And he went on an 8-point personal run in this time too. He was rolling. But again, even if he was, you weren't finding it from much else. You had different players just getting in foul trouble. And it's like everybody else was so off, man. Nikola Vucevic could not find a rhythm. Baylor Shireman continued to get open look after open look and couldn't find a rhythm. And Ron Harper Jr. as well, with him getting some spot minutes here. The Nuggets continued to just leave him wide open in the same way that the Celtics probably wouldn't give a rat's ass if Zeke Naji shot the fucking basketball from deep. And yes, Zeke Naji is still with this damn team for some reason. But I digress. Like, genuinely, he's getting quality looks, and yet it just doesn't matter because he's just not accurate from that range, even remotely. If he was, maybe it'd help the Celtics out in this case, but no. It just further brought home the idea of slow play. Hell, everything was moving at such a slow pace that you could notice some of the weirdest of things. Because out of the corner of my eye, as this game is moving forward, I'm like, Is that fucking KJ Simpson Jr. I see on the Nuggets? When the hell did he get with this team? Like, seriously, I had no idea. I'm looking at the number 25 in blue, and I'm like, okay, who is this? Is that who I think it is? And lo and behold, you have a sighting of one of the better players in the most recent Summer League. Fuck it. Fittingly, it was Derek White after Tim Hardaway Jr. also struggled to settle into his job as being a sharpshooter. He'd magically throw down a dunk, but Derek White again responded with a three-pointer. Fair enough to cap off the first half and give the Nuggets make the Nuggets trail by one, down by 48-47 score. Like, seriously, that is dead ball era play at its finest. And it continued for a little bit. Just a little bit. Until it didn't. Until it didn't. Because the worst thing that could happen to the Celtics in this situation did. Simply put, they allowed those goddamn Nuggets to catch fire from deep, man. And they could not stop them. It was Nikola Jokic getting an open look and just splashing. It was Christian Braun getting out in space with his style of play, sparking up, splashing. Everybody going to work. You even had Cameron Johnson have to showcase to Tim Hardaway Jr. exactly how it was done. And while things were somewhat tight-knit at the start of the third quarter, as it moved forward, and after this game was tied up at 66 all before Jaylen Brown got in a free throw to give them the lead back, from that point towards near the end of the third quarter into the start of the fourth, it was all Nuggets. I mean, they went on a 19-3 run. 19-3. As Tim Hardaway Jr. continued to find some crazy zen. And even KJ Simpson threw down a dunk in transition, uncontested, just because. Plus, Valanciunas has continued to be a steady center for them in non-Jokic minutes, which was naturally going to be the key. And that's what made this run so disastrous. You're undergoing this as Jonas Valanciunas struggles to get up athletically, like he was trying to take Keita to the rack, and he fucking blew the dunk. I'm like, okay, there's no way you're trying to get up athletically, man. That's not your style of play. Then he started to do what he does best in terms of stretching the floor, and he worked himself into 7 fourth quarter points just like that, doing what he is known to do. And at that point, the Nuggets couldn't be stopped. You're finding that kind of rhythm without your best player on the court, something that, again, in seasons prior, had been their Achilles heel. As they had started it out this season, it's clearly been proven that it's real. You know, it was a little bit of a trial run for the first few games, and it was good to see that they were maintaining well without Jokic on the court. There were still, people probably believing that it couldn't last that long, that they couldn't keep up that kind of contribution without him on the court throughout a whole season. And, I mean, this game would prove that it's still going. They've still got that quality about themselves. With Julian Strawther even being able to get some spot minutes and make some quality shots here and just blow them out of the water. Like, it got to a point where I'm thinking at that point, As soon as I saw that, because I'm trying to find the exact play. This is getting out of hand, and they get an opportunity to score out in transition. Yeah, I'm thinking that, as Jordan Walsh is handling this ball at near the 6-minute mark, I'm thinking if the Celtics don't get a score here, the game is as good as done, because you don't have Jokic in, and he's healthy, he's available, but they're already up at this point by 17 points. You have got to get a run going right now, or it is done. They get blocked by Valanciunas on the other end, and at that point, I knew it was over with. They subbed Jokic back in, and they really didn't even have to. They just, we're just going to try some shit, and it got to a point where even DeRon Holmes II is out here making 3-point shots, but I digress. Quickly, in a game marked by slow pace early on, the Nuggets seemed to heat up at the right time, and the Celtics could not match it, giving Denver the 103-84 win for the second of the Wednesday night doubleheader games. Ooh. Celtics shot 34.9% from the floor and 27.9% from deep. You ain't winning too many games like that. You're not. You're just not. It's not like the Nuggets overall were much better, but when they needed to be, they surely acted like it. Like, that run was, that was everything. That was it. That is where everything flipped. Absolutely. No question about it. For the numbers, Nikola Jokic had 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists with a single turnover on 11 of 28 shooting. Same thing. Not crazy in terms of scoring accuracy. And Caden actually managed to get some good on-ball defense against him on occasion. But still, with a player like Jokic, again, it's like, even with that being said, man, what can you do? They would lose Jamal Murray in this game due to illness as well. But again, they held down the fort. Cameron Johnson had 11 points and 5 rebounds on 4 of 11 shooting with 3 threes. Julian Strawther had 12 points on 5 of 9 shooting with 2 threes. Valanciunas had 11 points off the bench with 6 rebounds on 5 of 7 shooting. And Christian Braun and Spencer Jones each had 6 points on the night. As for the Celts, Jaylen Brown had 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists and blocks on 7 of 21 shooting. And Derek White had 20 points and 6 rebounds on 6 of 14 shooting in this game with 4 threes. But again, not nearly enough to compete with the squad. Man, so that would do it for all the game action that I ended up watching post All-Star break. But for some developments, I'm just going to go rapid fire with them. I can expand briefly on a few, but I'm not going to do too much. Because I will say, I definitely, we're back on the regular grind. So, getting in depth into some of these matches like that, and again, some of them deserve that kind of quality. It's made it well worth it. But, it's got to level out in the amount of developments I have here. They span all the way back from when we were still in the All-Star break. Definitely would have tried to get those out way quicker. But again, overall, It was just a month where I probably had to be far more consistent than I was. Nonetheless, to get into the developments briefly, the Clippers would sign guard Jordan Miller to a 2-year contract. The Hawks would convert Caleb Houstan's 2-way deal to a standard contract. Franz Wagner is going to miss time indefinitely, as they are essentially saying that he needs additional rehab on a high ankle sprain. And granted, all of these developments are per Shams Charania. The Magic, to this point, I will say that they are kind of like in the mix overall. They are not that far removed, just a game and a half behind from the 76ers for the number 6 seed. But they are in the play-in right now. They're the 7 seed, so, if it's not for too much time, maybe, but it feels like they may need them back. Especially with them losing to the Rockets last night in tough fashion. And with Paolo Banchero putting together some inspiring performances, you want to be able to have that kind of player next to him to flank him, take some of the pressure off. And we understand that Franz Wagner can do that. So it's going to be crucial to see what continues to happen with him. As for the Kings, Domantas Sabonis, per Shams Charania, will be ruled out for the rest of the season due to surgery on a torn meniscus. And again, I honestly, in theme with what I just said, won't harp too much on this point. But it's essentially what I alluded to in the last recap when discussing Zach LaVine's season-ending injury. And now it's at a point where one or the other. Now you have to look at the entire thing. Because, I don't know. You don't want to kick a man when he's down, and you hope that Domantas Sabonis can recover from it and get better overall to get back to 100%. However, from the Kings' perspective, you're looking at this and you're saying that, honestly, Domantas Sabonis, for this time, as good of a player as he has been, as much of an anchor offensively as he has been down low for us. At the same time, we've been reaching the same ceiling from season to season to season. So, I mean, what exactly is it going to take? What do we have to do at this point? There are going to be questions like that in that front office. And again, you can't do much with them right now, but these are things to consider as, hey, honestly, prepare for off-season stuff pretty early on. Because, and especially with a later move that they would make, ain't no way you're expecting them to do anything post-April. The Nuggets would convert Spencer Jones' 2-way deal to a standard contract. The Blazers would sign Sidy Cissoko to a 2-year deal. The Pelicans would sign Bryce McGowens to a 3-year deal. The Wizards would sign Tristan Vukcevic to a 3-year, $9 million contract. Honestly, I don't make too much of that. But from the perspective of having a young center, it's probably worth it. Because again, with having Anthony Davis on your squad, obviously when he returns, he's going to be the guy, unquestioned. But at the same time, you have to have a backup plan if he does go down, which again has seemingly happened from season to season. That's the reputation that he has. It's not to take a shot at him or anything. Vukcevic, honestly, from that alone, it's not like you're commanding a ton of money there. No, he is truly a cheap option a very cheap option to have on this team. Only 22 years old, will be 23 on March 11th. And to this point in the season, he has not been asked to start in many games. But in relief, he has put up 7.9 points on 27.9% shooting with 47% shooting overall. Now, you'd want to see that three-point percentage get up, especially in cases where, like last season, for example, he was a fucking 37.3% shooter. Maybe you don't take that much stock into it, but you probably want him to reach somewhere in that territory. And if he can, honestly, you get that kind of value shooting for a backup stretch on that small of a contract. It's well worth it to have, honestly. And again, just to have an extra body in that locker room, at that position is important, especially in their situation. Oh my goodness. Man. Okay. To move further into it, Dillon Brooks is going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks with a broken left hand, per Shams Charania. And as much as I could just try to completely crap on it at the same damn time, it's like, with the way that he's been performing this season, he is truly one of their most valuable players right now. So I can imagine that would be a tough loss for the Suns to deal with. And, they're still okay. They would beat the Lakers yesterday night in controversial fashion. As none other than DeAndre Ayton, rather than actually trying to encapsulate genuine, hardcore, physical, on-ball defense on the court, he has a nerve to signal that on the bench because they can't play his ass in clutch time. Now, it was a three-point shot anyways. He's not going to be out there to guard that. But that is the bullshit. Again, he's showing you who he is. What are you going to do? Inspired win on the Suns' end, so they're managing pretty well. And they're currently the 7th seed in play-in contention. And with the win, just a single game behind those Los Angeles Lakers. So as long as they can weather the storm, they're probably going to be okay. It projects to where Dillon Brooks is going to be back for potential playoff time. So, as long as they can sustain, they'll probably be fine. The Kings would sign Killian Hayes to a 10-day contract. Yes, it is only a 10-day contract. But hearing the name Killian Hayes just sent multiple shocks of PTSD across multiple fan bases in the NBA. Pistons fans still harbor the most deep-seated hatred and dislike for this man, despite them seemingly being out of the strong, unquestioned, rebuilding, tanking phase. As I've consistently said, Isaiah Livers is the worst player I've seen take reps on a basketball court in the NBA in my lifetime since I've been watching it. Straight up. No question. And so the Kings believe that the solution here, again, you understand that they're not going anywhere. But you're that desperate to where you get a person who has been labeled by people as the tank commander, the floor general for one of the worst teams in NBA history up to that point in the season, as a backup, that's who you're trusting? Are you serious? Like, yo, come on, man. That just goes without saying. I don't even need to add any more to that. You can do what you will with this. The Grizzlies would sign Rayan Rupert to a 10-day contract as well. Vince Williams Jr. will miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL. Hopefully he recovers from that. Like, that sucks. Genuinely. The Lakers would actually hire former Virginia head coach Tony Bennett as a draft advisor. I seen it on a Fox Sports ticker, and I was like, okay, who was that? The Lakers got him? And then I had to review it again, and it turned out they actually did. It's quite surprising. You know, Tony Bennett's been in state, I won't say full state of limbo, but he's definitely been considering some things. I mean, you know, it wasn't just too long ago that he decided to call it a coaching career in terms of college basketball. And, you know, I suppose with this move, he still wants to have some kind of impact in space, be around and contribute in some way. And, you know, that's reasonable. And honestly, when it comes to, you know, filling the role of draft advisor, in essence, like being a scout for talent, I guess you can't question a person who was that successful and who led Virginia to a national title. You can't question what he'll tell you. But the fact that the Lakers have to hire him, essentially not being too far removed from college, into filling an NBA role. And keep in mind, this is the same team that was, for a while, rumored to be going for Dan Hurley when he was seemingly available for the Lakers job before they hired JJ Redick. Yeah. I don't know how this will turn out for them, but it'll be interesting to see. James Harden suffered a fracture in his right thumb. Per Shams Charania, though, he intends to play through it for the rest of the season. I would hope that it doesn't ail him for that damn long. At that point, it's like, okay, brother, just go get that fixed. Please. Like, you don't have to deal with that. Just get the damn thing fixed. The Jazz would sign Mo Bamba to a 10-day contract. The Grizzlies would buy out Kyle Anderson on, I guess, an intended second stint, and would sign Taj Gibson. Again, is there any more that I need to say about that? This is Taj Gibson we are talking about in 2026. I don't even know how this becomes a headline. Lauri Markkanen is going to be reevaluated in the next 2 weeks. During an MRI, per Shams Charania, they found a hip impingement that had been contributing to some of the recent injuries that he'd been dealing with, keeping him out for long stretches of time. So, once more, another situation where it's like, they'd been coming down hard on these teams for tanking. And yes, there was a report mentioning that Adam Silver and the NBA overall would send a memo saying that, hey, by next season we're going to, incorporate some anti-tanking measures. I just want to see what those actually look like. That's a different conversation for a different video as well to address as they continue to go further and further. So I'm definitely going to be interested into looking at that. But, you're coming down hard on them, and hey, like some of these teams are genuinely in it, but, if Lauri Markkanen is actually dealing with some of this stuff, then maybe it's like, okay, see guys, we're not tanking. Then you find out a report stating that the NBA is sending doctors to investigate the fucking injury because they don't believe that the Jazz are telling the truth. Like, oh my, like that is just, oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Seriously, I hope Lauri Markkanen gets better. Like, I have reason to believe that injury is real. Is like, yo, you got, they're just sending in their own ball squad to check. Like, damn. The Suns would waive Cole Anthony, and the Pacers would sign Quenton Jackson to a 3-year contract. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.